Hey everybody, how's everyone doing? This is Melvin here, and welcome everyone to this episode here where we're talking about how do you use scenario planning for your one-person business. Now, in case you are new to this channel, you know, this channel is where we talked about anything with regards to putting in place the pillars to build a one person, 1 million or digital business. And in case you're wondering why, why digital business? Well, the reason why we want to build a digital business is because we want to be able to work from anywhere, to be able to go anywhere, anywhere there is a internet access, we will be able to do the work. And I've been really enjoying the whole idea of to be able to travel as well as earn an income. And it was something that I did in 2015 and 2016, so that it's really attractive to me. So today we want to talk about scenario planning for the one person business. And why do I want to talk about this one person business and scenario planning? Is simply because I think many of us were caught by surprise in the 2020. We kind of went out there and we did our plan. Some of us even had big plans. Like, for example, for myself, I was so excited about what's going to happen in 2020, and then, of course, COVID struck everyone, and I guess most of us, if not all of us, were caught by surprise. And because of what happened itself, many of our plans will have to be erased. In fact, some of us, in fact, I was just telling some of my associates that when I was in 2020 April, I decided to write off the entire year, and simply because the traditional work that I do, it's no longer going to be viable nor feasible. And so I literally wrote off that aspect of the business and just focus on the side that it's able to sustain and to function effectively well in this new normal itself. And whenever we talk about this new normal, it always brings me back to the time where it's the year 2000, and I'll come back to that in a bit. But scenario planning, what exactly is scenario planning? Well, scenario planning essentially it is what it is. I mean, as the name implies, you plan based on a series of scenarios. Now, you may be wondering, like, so how are we supposed to do that? I mean, how do we know what scenarios are there going to be? Now, so there are a few things that you can do in terms of identifying the scenarios. Of course, number one is that you would have to have a sufficient bit of information or data at your hand. Now, this data is going to kind of inform you, like, what's been happening in the economy, what's happening, overseas, and how all this is going to come together, and, what is your analysis of that data itself. So, the premise behind this really is that first and foremost, you must have a set of data and information to look at. So this is not like, oh, let me imagine what's going to happen. No, this is going to be based on data, based on information, and based on those data and information, this is where you kind of derive what are the insights from there, right? If you are, wondering how do you go about deriving insights, I have a video which talks about actionable insights itself. So make sure you check out that video because that's what's going to tell you how do you come up with actionable insights, right? So you take all this data and information, you convert that into data and information, you convert that into insights. And from those insights itself, the next step that you would do is that you will come up with a series of hypotheses. Now, how does one come up with hypothesis itself? Well, one of the best way to come up with hypothesis actually to think about what might likely happen. One of the things that you may want to do is you may actually want to go back and look at what has happened previously. So as an example, if you look at what's going to happen after COVID-19? Well, the nearest memories that you can dig your hands into would be SARS, right? And so that kind of gives you an idea of what are some of the possibilities that could happen. Now, of course, here it takes quite a fair bit of speculation, but you're not speculating out of thin air. What essentially you're doing is that you're actually speculating based on the set of information that you have. And then from there, you kind of derive, what exactly is the way forward itself. So, have you done scenario planning? Has it worked for you? How does it look like? If you have experience with that, make sure you leave it in the comment. Just type in, planning, and we will know that you have some experience with scenario planning itself, right? So once you get the data, the information, you convert that into insights. You analyze that, you convert that into insights, and then the next thing, what you want to do is you want to hypothesize, you want to speculate, you want to think what might it be, right? And based on that information itself, this is where you start thinking what are the various scenarios that could happen. So let me give you an example here, right? Now, going forward, one of the key things that I have definitely put in place is a pillar of getting a steady stream of recurring income. And based on that steady stream of recurring income, that is going to be able to help me meet certain of my, day-to-day living expenses. and that's going to take care of the minimum viable amount of expenses that we could live with. Now, once that is kind of taken care of course, whatever that comes up on top of that, those will be additional, right? So everything that is additional that's going to come up from all this work that I'm doing, it's going to be additional. Now, all this additional income is then going to be channeled to, back into the business itself. It's going to be reinvested back into this business. Now, so going forward, what are some of the things that I could, hypothesize? Well, one of the hypotheses that I can come up with is that I am going to get at least two or three of such clients who is able to pay me a recurring income, a retainer, so to speak, for a period of time. And within this period of time, I know for sure that I am definitely going to make I'm definitely going to make bank, right? So that's the way it is. So that is one scenario. Now, of course, then you have to plan for, the worst case scenario, as you probably are familiar with that term itself, the worst case scenario. Now, the worst case scenario is where you are looking at, hey, what happened if, I do not land two or three in fact, I only have one, then what is the worst case scenario that's going to happen itself? And of course, with that, you would then want to put in place, what are some of the trigger that that you would want to look at so that you are able to kind of put in place initiatives or take action before, as they say, the shit hits the fan. So what you really are doing here is that you want to hypothesize and say, on the one hand, this is what's going to happen. On the other hand, this is what might happen. Now, so typically, some people what they do is they just go with the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. But what I think you ought need to do is more than that. So instead of or in addition to the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, what you really want to look at is the following. You want to look at all the data and the information that has been given to you. You want to be able to analyze that, convert that into actionable insights, and then based on those actionable insights, you want to say that, okay, if I'm going to implement this series of initiatives, what is the possible outcome that I could potentially see? What is the best case scenario and what is the worst case scenario? There you go again, right? So you take the data and information, convert that into actionable insights. You think about, if I'm going to execute on this, what is the best, what is the worst case scenario? Now, this is different from just thinking about what's the best case scenario, what's the worst case scenario that could happen, because this is where you are actually relying not just on, what if, but you are also looking at, for example, data and information. And I'm a big proponent of, looking at things that are evidence based or looking at data and information because that's what really guides you along the way in terms of what's happening, right? And in addition to that, because these are the data that it's guiding you along the way, it also gives you an inkling in terms of what's working and what's not working. And then from there, that's where you could make adjustment. You could see what are some of the things that you could do to kind of rectify or course correct along the way. And so that kind of links us back to what I talked about yesterday when I talked about the metrics that you would use to measure, right? So along the way, as you are looking at all these different actionable insights, you want to ask yourself, what are some of the measures that you could put in place so that you are able to track, how is it going and how well it is functioning itself. All right. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. One of the things that we always do when it comes to strategic planning and scenario planning is that we always look at four key areas. And let me just run through these four key areas with you very quickly so that you get an idea of what are some of the data and information that you would need to collect, for example, right? So, number one, the type of information that you want to collect is what is your past performance, right? What is your past performance over the last couple of years? In other words, what have you done and what are the results that you have gotten? Now that's part one. Now the other part of it is you also want to look at, what is the performance of the industry as a whole? Where is it going? Right? What is the performance of the industry as a whole and where is it going? Now, of course, then at the larger level, that's where you want to look at either at the country level or even at the regional level or even at the global level, right? What is the performance of the country and where is it going? What's the performance of the region and where is it going? So that is one big block of information that you want to look at. So based on those information, you would then convert that into actionable insights to say that, well, if the country is going this way, but the world is going that way, then I'm going to hedge my bet. I'm going to go this way so that, when things picks up, I'm able to ride the wave itself, right? So that's one aspect of it that you will need to pay attention to. So that's performance. Now, the next category of data and information that you want to collect essentially it's what is your strength, what is your capability, what is your set of competency, right? Now this, on one hand is really about stock taking, right? Taking stock about, let's see where you are at, right, in terms of your expertise, in terms of your competency. Is there a need for you to retool? Is there a need for you to learn new skill? Is there a need to acquire new knowledge? And if you are wondering, the answer is yes, yes, and yes. Right. So you want to ask yourself, what are some of the knowledge do I need to acquire? What are some of the skills do I need to hone? What are some areas that I need to improve upon? Right. So that is one aspect of it. Now, in the same vein where we're talking about competencies, you also want to look at, as a whole in terms of the industry itself. What are some of the demands for certain skill set? So as an example, I am postulating that, the ability to do live stream is going to be crucial going forward, because now more so than ever, people are just going to say that, well, why don't we jump on Zoom? Why don't we jump on Skype and let's do this virtual meetings instead of meeting face to face? And, if we are able to um, you know, get a certain vibes or get certain indication through this virtual meeting, then we can decide that perhaps it is worth the while to schedule a face-to-face meeting. So this is something that is really, really crucial, and I think that this is something that people would need. Now, how do people need to? So this is where I want to go into that aspect. I am postulating, I am hypothesizing, I am speculating that this skill set is going to be crucial, and there are people who are going to be feeling a bit nervous and they will need to be trained in this area, right? So competency would be the second set of data and information that you need to look at, right? And so if you're on LinkedIn, one of the tips for you is that you go to your desktop or go to your laptop and open up LinkedIn and go to some of the people's profile that you kind of aspire to be. And once you're looking at the profile itself, if you look at the right hand column, you will see that area of LinkedIn Learning, and it will actually identify for you what are some of the skill sets that you would need to have, you need to acquire, so that you are able to match up or to be able to close the gap with those people that you aspire to become, right? So that's something that you can definitely look at. Now, so that is the second aspect, which is competency. Now, the third aspect that you want to look at is what I call the resources. Now, resources essentially, in a one person business, primarily you are looking at time, money, and energy, right? Time, money, and energy, because You can have all the time in the world, but you have no energy and no time. Well, it's going to be quite difficult, right? But if you have no time, but you got all the energy and you got some money, then probably something can be done. So you really want to look at this, and you want to look at what is the state of your finances and what are some of the things that you can do. And of course, this is where you want to, um, you know, uh, hypothesize in terms of what are some of the resources that I could pull together. So, can I work with someone? Can I collaborate with other people so that I may not have the resources, but they have the resources, and I'm able to leverage their resources, for example? Right. So, this is something that is really, really crucial, because once you have all this information itself, it allows you to think about scenario planning. And then the last one, the last piece of data information that you would definitely want to collate and look at, it's people. Now, what do I mean by people? Now, people, I would put them into this category because they comprise people like your audience, your your competitors, as well as the people that you aspire to become, right? And this is really, really interesting, because once you are collecting data or looking at information about people, what this is going to help you is that it's going to give you a better insight, and it's going to give you a better understanding in terms of what is thinking in your prospect's mind, right? What is your prospect thinking, for example? And so this is where you would want to look at people. So, my friends, if you look at performance, if you look at competency, you look at resources, and you look at people. If you have this set of data itself, and you are able to mine that into actionable insights, and then from there you can decide that, okay, if I'm going to implement A, B, C, D, what is the best case scenario and what is the worst case scenario, right? And from there you can kind of readjust your strategies, or or you can relook at, what are some of the trigger, what are some of the benchmarks that I should be looking at, what's some of the measures that I should be looking at, so that I do not get tripped up, or I know when to panic, and when to know that everything is fine, right? For example. Okay, so I hope that this has been helpful. Well, if you have not done your planning for 2021, what are you waiting for? But if you want help with regards to planning in 2021, hit me up, and I'll be more than glad to talk to you about how you can go ahead with your plans. Right. And with that, I thank you for watching. And by the way, if you have not subscribed to my channel, can I ask you to consider subscribing? Because one of the key things that I'm doing is I'm really growing my channel, and while I'm also on this experiment where I want to see what's happening when I do talk about subscribing to this channel at the end of each video itself. Now, the whole idea with you subscribing to this channel is that so that you get informed whenever I go live. That's one thing. The other thing is that, if you are interested in strategies and techniques and all this good stuff about how you can build your one person business, then definitely this channel is for you. What I aim to do and what you will be signing up for essentially is that I'm going to talk to you about, strategies and actionable advice, and something that it's implementable, right? I'm not just going to leave you hanging by tell you this is what you need to do, but not how you are going to do that. So, like for example, today we're talking about strategic planning, we're talking about scenario planning. And in scenario planning itself, where are the data that you're going to get from? What aspects of data are you going to look at? So you have your performance, you have your competency, you have your resources, and you also have your people. These are a good set of data that you need to collect so that you are able to put together a good scenario planning on your paper itself. All right. So I hope this has been helpful. If it has, make sure you hit the thumbs up and give me a like. And if you want more content like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I'll be most grateful. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you. Good night.